but not quite the same as the tackage, which is butanitrile hybrid in there. So this is a urethane. And we'll go over some of the benefits and contrasts and talk about longevity and lifespan of this rubber too in comparison tonight when we have the whole group. Sort of an edge. Is anyone familiar with like other homemade rollers where they use like vinyl tarping and Shelley, you got that? There's always that edge. They always have to make like a really like with concrete molds, make a really big cardboard one, and you always have to be aware of that. And so I really didn't. So this is just the molds that you have in front of you are a 3-inch and a 4-inch piece of PVC pipe glued onto a laser cut little base here. And on the base I've actually laser etched out where those go. And this is just a really cheap way to make sort of a mold hold. Otherwise, my first mold I used was this really heavy duty sort of cap for the 4-inch PVC pipe, which is actually really nice because there's a 3-inch ring on the inside that I just used. And this ring is just held in here with just some hot glue. Nothing special. Put a little hot glue on, center it up, push it down, and that's how you make the mold. However, this is a little expensive since we're doing 16 of us. Each one of these little end caps was like $7 or $8 each. And of course, if you're making one yourself, it's not too much to buy 4 feet of pipe and then 1 cap. But again, to keep the cost down for everyone for this workshop is why I went ahead and did these sort of laser etched little cap molds for us. So everything I'm doing, there's a cheap way around. You don't need to have access to special equipment. Even still, I could have cut this if I was really careful with the jigsaw too at that. So there is a little bit of a, it came undone. There is a little bit of a process to that. So what we're doing. So first thing we want to do is we want to prep our mold. So you want to make sure that you can take off the 4-inch pipe off around from the inside there. Just do the whole edge, front to back. Please make sure to get down into the ring here as well. Then after we spray that on, we're going to have some brushes, and we just want to just gently brush and smooth out. Now when I first made that roller upstairs, I thought more mold release was better. And when that happened, when there's too much mold release on either the inside or outside, you'll get what's called champagne bubbles. So the roller looked awesome and amazing, but after I did the first time printing with it and cleaning it up, I noticed that there's ink in tiny little micro dots inside of the rubber. Now that's actually not going to affect anything. I was actually printing a photolithograph. You couldn't even tell about those little micro dots, but it's a real pain in the butt when it comes to cleaning. So to avoid those champagne bubbles, as they say in the mold making industry, we're just going to do a brush. And when you read the instructions on something like this, it says to do 2 applications, and the second application is what added too much to it. So we're just doing a single application and just doing a very gentle brushing around again to make sure to get down inside the mold here too. And then we're going to repeat that for the inside of the 4-inch. Again, I'm going to have my gloves on and spray. And then I'm just going to brush that on as well. And the best way I found to brush is you'll find this sort of center line in there. And I'll just brush towards myself and just work all the way around until I come back to that again. So once we have the mold release on there, it needs to rest for 5 minutes. But as it's resting, we can just we can push it back on and lay it on, and try to push it down as well as you can, and then use your fingers. I kind of use both 4 of my fingers and kind of make sure that everything is level in there. There might be a little bit of play, that's fine once we get the rubber in there, as long as you have it set, sort of centered, because we obviously don't want an off-kilter roller. That'll handle itself. I'm sorry, that's a universal mold release by Smooth On. And one thing about this rubber too, the electrical tape, and I'm just going to tape the sealing edge right around here. And there's typically a little bit of leak shed. We'll get sometimes on the inside, sometimes coming up, but it's really not that much to affect the overall height. It's not going to be spilling out. It's very viscous. It'll eventually plug itself up.
Absolutely.
Jogging their little buckets.
So we're taking off both of them. Should I cut this? It kind of like,
We're getting there.
it kind of like came out just like a part where it's.
Are you wanting to do it yourself?
An example.
Is that ours?
All kinds of problems. So, Ross, we're probably not supposed to twist anything, right?
No, twisting is good.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because you want to separate.
And shout if you have to. Sorry,
Trust me, I know.
Okay.
Usually nobody laughs for me.
So if you guys want to...
If they don't get the reference, they're not going to
A
laugh.
lot of times they don't.
Oh, it's ready. Yeah, it's... Okay. So, yeah.
So I did make a clean edge.
When we put it on the core, we'll cut off the excess.
Got it.
Stable and hypoallergenic. However, what we're using is urethane rubber, which is a synthetic rubber. Now, unfortunately, this stuff does break down over time. The best estimates from other colleagues I've talked to who've done other similar experiments with the urethane rubbers is that it has a lifespan of about 10 years. But what do we spend? $50 to make a roller and it lasts 10 years. So 10 years from now, you cut the rubber off, you cast another one, and you slip that on the core, and it's good for another 10 years, right? It'll break down. Real quick side note, if you guys don't mind me doing so. I talked about the champagne bubbles, right, from using too much mold release. You can kind of see those tiny little black dots on the roller here, those champagne bubbles. That's a fancy name for it, right? Again, they're so tiny, they're pinpricks. They're pinpricks, so it's not going to show up on a photolitho or photogravure if you end up picking up one of those. It just makes it a pain in the butt to clean. So I've kind of just accepted. I've been drawing all this up in like Illustrator and Google SketchUp, and then exporting them, and then in laser cutting all these things. So, and because this is such a thin material, that's why I added these triangle supports for you folks too. And this has traveled several hundred miles as it is. It's not going to fall apart.
Gluing model. Just your hands.
I know those.
I have a lot of visitors
Yeah.
to witness my insanity, so. But yeah.
Which is okay if you kind of want like a temporary sleeve, so you could arguably have multiple roller sleeves with different durometers and slide them on and off as you wish, which is pretty cool. But I have found, so I might do a little bit of PVA, which I'll paint on PVA on the first half, and then as it slides down, because it's such a tight fit, it'll just push the rest of the PVA on the whole floor.
Oh, yeah.
Then after that dries,
Sorry.
after that dries a little bit, I actually might go over with a little bit of super glue, and you just lift the edge and just super glue the inside, and that should usually make a nice watertight seal.
Oh, got
then
it,
all the way
yeah.
around. So that'll be, I think that's like the next step. We asked about sealing. You could paint this, you could use polyurethane. My preferred method though is using shellac. And that's because shellac is oil-based, so if you're using oil-based ink, you can use the same cleanup situation on the raw wood as you can on the roller itself.
If you want to seal it here with a water base, we have a gallon of water-based polyurethane.
And I have shellac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll turn the ceiling fans on if we want to go.
Would it be
We
possible
can crack the
just
windows.
put
And...
the rubber sleeve on there without anything else?
It's so grippy that you really don't need to glue it if you don't want to. Like I said, if you want to have changeable durometers, or maybe you have one that you carve into as a monoprint and change it out for a smooth one, that's like one of the hidden benefits of making your own rollers like
How hard
this.
is it to switch them out?
Not that hard. I mean, we can just slide this right on and
Okay.
slide it right off.
Okay.
The only thing you just want to be careful with, guys, is that it can stretch if you're too aggressive with these edges as you're trying to pull it on and off. Some of you, depending on how aggressive we were with pulling it off of the mold as it is, it might be a little bit bowed. Again, that's where sort of using a little bit of super glue on the edge will just help mold things down. But this rubber is so soft, if there's any imperfections in the PVC, if there's any imperfections with it sort of flaring at the ends, that soft 40 durometer really doesn't leave any sort of flat spots or marks while we're doing that. The inside, doing a little alcohol swab on the outside. Then I'll just paint that PVA glue halfway, like I said, just very thin amount, because it's such a airtight seal. And then I'll just push it right down. And you want to have your bottom of your roller be the first thing that goes on, because then we're going to be cutting off sort of this gnarly edge and then truing up this bottom edge first.
Cool.
Capiche?
Yeah, peace.
I'm gonna go grab the alcohol and swabs. I'll be right.
Good idea. Look, it says Ross Rollers.
A little wood glue, move the other way, put a little wood glue, and then center it where you want it to, and just let it hang out. That's also why we made these guys first, so that way it can just set up on there. It should be pretty tight fit as well. If your wood's a little bowed, try starting with the bow side in first, and then the straight edge will be coming out the other side. All right.
When are these cut?
That's usually the very last thing is I'll cut the edge, and then I'll do an extra sealant of super glue on the inside of the rubber core. These are just very roughly rounded off, so before you seal this, if you guys want to use some sandpaper and like really get a nice like broom handle end on it, you can do that. Rough cutting all this extra stuff off. Oh, that's not really working too much.
They're not the best.
You're
shop's called
you're
BYO.
saving your best scissors for later,
Shop's
right?
called BYO.
Scissors never last here, they disappear.
Or bad stuff.
Alright, so just so we can set this on the caddy, I'm just going to rough cut this all the way around. And this is also a good time to practice, too. Like I said, I find really short movements, and this won't be as floppy once we get closer to the core for support, but since this is so far extended. And a little Dawn dish soap, too, I find helps with that, because there's so much shearing force from the rubber, as you guys have noticed getting on and off the molds, right?
Yeah.
How are we doing overall? You guys feeling good?
Yes.
Yeah. We have rollers, right? So this is one of those test of patience moments, right?
Another one?
Another one.
Like the porn.
Printmakers don't know how to focus at all, right? There we go. Cut. I guess I can. So I'm left-handed, guys, so that's what I'll be doing from this side. And so again, just to practice, I'm going to be probably sneaking up on the edge of my core.
Would it help at this point to do the crazy glue?
It would help to do the crazy glue, help pulling it away.
Really.
Okay, got it.
What's nice about the urethane too is you can also, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once, talk and demonstrate. You can also use sandpaper and smooth this out with some wet sandpaper too.
Wait, smooth what out?
Smooth out the rough cut edge of the urethane with some sandpaper.
Oh, cool.
This will scare the roller making industry.
Is that yours? No.
Should the second to last two flip? Not the last one, but so those two flip? Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. This is so cool. That's the aerial shot. Okay, now we can all get in.
All right.
Picture time.